TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. We're actually testing this right now. We had horrible problems both today and yesterday. Technical problems. No idea why.
Ter-
So uh, right now, AP is was having trouble hearing me. We want to ask everyone what this sounds like, because he's getting some weird audio from me, but I don't know if that's just him or if that's everyone who's hearing me. So tell me if this is working. Check one. Let me mess with these settings.
oh yeah, I just checked. I just muted our conversation and checked the live stream. It sounds totally fine.
Sounds totally fine.
So
So it's your
yeah,
crap stuff.
that's probably your craps. That is probably your streaming stuff. And
Oh,
I don't
people are
know.
saying good. Okay. Um, Now the screen's
Yeah,
messed up though. It's supposed to crop us and make us full screen. Hey guys,
I know.
I didn't have this computer set up the entire time after we moved, and then when I put it back on, the entire system changed. So how do I crop this to where what is what's weird is it wasn't doing this before we went live, and then as soon as we went live, then it put us like side by side. I guess there's no harm, right?
Nah, it's no big problem.
All
Maybe I
right,
can tell everyone a little story, and people can tell me if I sound okay or not.
you sound totally fine
So
to me.
once upon a time. Okay, well, okay, I forget that.
People are saying we both sound good.
Okay,
All right.
wonderful,
So
fantastic.
we sound good. So the only problem is AP's face.
Well, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we actually had this idea a couple of weeks ago when we were watching. What were we watching? Because it wasn't the Ali Dawah clip because we just watched that. What were we watching?
I don't know. We were talking about. I have no idea, man.
We were watching
Um,
someone else's clip, or maybe we brought up Ali Dawah and said we're going to watch an Ali Dawah clip or something like that. But the topic that came up was the topic that came up was, can you imagine someone like William Lane Craig doing the stuff that these guys do? Yeah, like eating grapes and stuff, right? Like we're gonna sit there and I'm gonna be having a debate, and I'm gonna be okay. Hey, who was doing that supposedly? Smiles to Jenna or whatever. Was that?
yeah,
I don't
Smile
know
to
who's.
Jenna. I think that's the guy's channel, and that's a good friend of Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawa and the whole gang. And apparently, it was him feeding him grapes and stuff while he
That's
was
the.
debating.
That's weird, man. Like even as a joke, having a dude feed you grapes is I don't know. That's kind of
It is a very strange relationship put on camera. Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of creepy.
But
But
it would be funny. It would be funny if William Lane Craig was, yeah, in that position when if he was like on a debate and he was being fed grapes and doing weird things on camera and then saying, "You've been humiliated, you boy," and that's how we got the idea that we should maybe look into
yeah, and so
a
it
video like
was
this.
yeah, it was just interesting like how different people have different approaches, and it's like the Dawa guys who all seem to have uh this approach. Oh, hang on. Wait, let me see. I've been searching. Let's see. Aha!
Wow, you
Wow, I'm
did it!
figuring this out like a boss, son. Like a
You
boss.
did it, man! You did it,
All
man!
right. So anyway, we're thinking, hey, why don't we actually check out some clips by other people? And then just so you know, we're actually talking behind the scenes, and we're talking about how everything is like so tribal now, like no one can interact. Like we have live streams together, we'll be talking about something, and we'll both get complaints from other people. How can you possibly?
Yeah,
I'm saying it like one of my Dawa guys' voices. It's like same personality, but how can you work with him, AP? David, what are you doing associating with an atheist? How dare you? And we also get it. We do get it from Dawa guys. Like, you see, the atheists and the Christians are conspiring together to go against Islam. This proves that they know it's the truth. So we get stuff like that. Whereas we've just never absorbed the idea. We've never absorbed the idea that, we disagree on some things, and therefore we're like perpetual enemies, and there can be nothing but eternal hostility between us, or something
Yeah.
like that. So, anywho, we
It's as you pointed out, it's not just one group. It is many people. It is I see atheists say stuff like, "Okay, I understand your perspective and what you're doing, but how could you associate with somebody like David Wood, who has terrible views and who also believes in God?" And sometimes I see Christians, rarer to be very honest, who also point that whole thing out, like why would you associate with each other? Why would you talk to him, and so on. But yeah,
I've
so
noticed I've
both
noticed
of us,
that
we
too.
just don't have that perspective.
I've noticed that too. Like I pointed out, I do occasionally get the messages from Christians, but it seems, I mean, we both see it from Muslims, but I do see more from atheists, and it's directed at you. Just
Yeah,
if I'm looking at the chats and so on. So
yeah, yeah.
anyway, we guys, we actually want to set a good example that, hey, we can all, and this isn't just like David Wood and the Apostate Prophet. This is, if you are not an angry individual who can't get along with anyone who disagrees with you and so on, then we'd be happy to have discussions and so on. This includes Muslims. As a matter of fact, uh, you were mentioning that Ahmed, whom you debated, Finding Truth, you were saying that he seems cool. He seems like a nice guy. And then, I just debated him with Nuria, and I agreed that, I agree. He seems like a really cool guy. I didn't get the vibe that he's trying to trick and deceive, like I do with most of the Dawa guys and stuff like that. So notice, I'm totally fine having him on to join us for discussions if he wants to show us, arguments for why the Quran contains scientific miracles and stuff like that. I'm just basing this on a glance at his channel, the topics he's interested in. Totally fine. But yeah, so
Yeah.
guys, we would encourage you. We know everyone is being programmed. Here's your group. Do not associate with anyone outside your group, except in hostile fashion. And I personally think that's just bad for the entire world. And so it
I
starts
want
here.
to,
We're gonna fix it here.
yeah, I want to contribute to this whole idea by bringing into this discussion a perfect philosopher who fits right into the whole idea here of God, Nietzsche, who said who said something along the lines of the easiest way to, or the surest way to corrupt the youth is to give them the idea that those who agree with you are of higher value than those who disagree with you, or something along those lines. That was the whole idea, and he was all about pointing out that whole thing, the whole tribalism that is going on all the time. And I think that's actually a very, very, very well made way to point out how people are actively taught this idea that they should seek alliances and friendships, partnerships only with those who whose ideas they like, who agree with them, who agree with their beliefs, while rejecting or I don't know, disregarding or degrading those who disagree with them on certain fundamental ideas and beliefs, or even trivial things.
Yeah, and what's really creepy is you can see. I mean, it's borderline. It's like cult-like behavior, but now instead of being applied to just cults, it's being applied to all groups, right? Like cult-like behavior is, if you start a cult, you have to isolate them because you don't want them talking to anyone else, because they might start realizing, oh, this person has a different view, and so why do I have that? And you don't want them thinking about other options. You don't want them thinking critically about what they're taught. So like when it breaks up into tribes and you can't interact, this people are adopting cult like behavior.
Yeah.
Do not associate with anyone else, because AP, you might hear a Christian and think he has a good point, and David, you might be persuaded by this atheist or something like that. No, you can't do that. And it's like, gosh, guys, are any of you reasonably confident in your views? If so, what are you so scared of? Like, what are you so
It
scared?
is it is fear, right?
Yeah, everyone's scared. They're scared of the power, power of power of our stuff. Anyway, so to set off, I mean, at least on the live streams, I'll be doing, and our general plan, just so everyone knows, is So AP and I are planning that. Things can always change because we might be doing something else one weekend and weird things can happen and stuff. But our general plan is on Saturdays try to go live on his channel, and on Sundays try to go live on my channel. And probably generally on his channel we'll be looking at clips from like Dawa guys, arguments, things like that, and having discussions about Islamic topics where we're pretty much usually on the same page. And then on my channel on Sundays, we might be watching a video. You can feel free to send us requests if you see a Dawa clip that you would like us to address. Let us know about it. But also, like clips from, especially when someone gives an argument and it's not like a 3-hour argument. If someone gives like a 5-hour argument, so something we can actually go through. Whether it's an argument for theism or an argument for atheism or anything along those lines from someone you like, we'd be happy to go through these, give our thoughts. Keep in mind we're not experts on all issues. So on various clips, like we're about to watch William Lane Craig, who's spent decades studying a topic. But there are philosophers and cosmologists on both sides of the issues who would know more than we do. But we're happy going through a clip, giving our thoughts on the arguments, and having you guys jump in with your thoughts as well. So, should we go ahead and start off with some William Lane Craig?
Absolutely, absolutely. I am completely ready to do this. Yeah.
By the way,
somebody in the comment section asked, "Is this live or pre-recorded?" It is pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously live. Yeah. So,
yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are live here. We're going to be watching William Lane Craig, and I have two pulled up just because I have a shorter one that's around 4 minutes, and then one that's around 7 minutes. But the 7-minute one wasn't just because it's a little longer, because I mean Craig has like full hour, 2-hour long lectures and stuff on the Kalam Cosmological argument, but the 7-minute version had some graphics in it and stuff like that might help us understand points and so on. So we're definitely going to try to go through the first one, and then if we have time, because we're only playing on, since it's Super Bowl, people are going to watch Super Bowl, at least a lot of people in America. We're going to try and keep this about an hour or so. But if we can get through both clips, we'll get through both, and if not, we'll just discuss the first one. All right, so we all set?
Yes, ready to go.
All
ready
right,
to shoot.
Get ready to become a theist, AP. And by the way, everyone, since this is a fairly new channel, if you can, go ahead and share this with your friends, and let's go ahead and check out William Lane Craig. What are your thoughts on William Lane Craig before we get started? Because there are, I'm sure lots of people who are familiar with apologetics and stuff like that know who William Lane Craig is on both sides, atheists and theists. But for anyone who's new to this, what do you think about Craig?
Well, I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good debater. I watched 2 of his debates, or 3 of his debates so far. I don't know. I mean, he's a respectable person, respectable figure. He put forth several very good, very widely recognized, respected arguments for gods and other issues. I remember watching a debate between, I think, the Sam Harris William Lane Craig debate. That was a pretty impressive one. Although I thought, from my perspective, I think William Lane Craig's position was less convincing than the other.
That's because you're dumb atheist.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would have. I mean, if he had convinced me that there is a God, I would have immediately taken the Shahada.
Yeah, well, you
converted to Islam.
So, people like you just mindlessly agree with whatever your guy says and can't criticize other people.
That's how it works, man. That's how it works.
Those are examples of stuff we could check out in the future. Like we could, I mean, it's too long to go through an entire debate, but we could watch like William Lane Craig's argument on, in one time, and then Sam Harris's argument. Because I was scrolling through videos to get to this, and one of them was like Sam Harris completely obliterates Christianity in a certain number of minutes and stuff like that. But we could watch stuff like this. Oh, before we jump in, quick comment here. David, how would you respond to someone who hangs their hats on that science doesn't know what happened pre-Planck time? That's actually going to be something a response I take seriously against this, but we're going to get into it. We're going to make sure we all
We'll talk about
understand
this specifically. Yeah.
the
We'll
argument.
talk
But
about that.
yes, I am sympathetic to that response, and namely, one of the general criticisms of several versions of theistic arguments is Hume said it. Hume said it very well in his dialogues concerning natural religion. It's basically the further you get away from anything we have in our experience, the more careful you have to be reasoning about it because things might not work the way you think they work. And so when you start talking about eternities and infinites and so on, your mind might not work as well as you think it does in those areas. And so I think that's something to think about. All right, we're ready to get started.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you William Lane Craig. As far as public debates go, I think I can't think of anyone better on the topics he deals with. So I think Craig's the kind of the Christian goat as far as public
Yeah.
public debates goes. But let's go ahead and check out. This is from his debate with Christopher Hitchens a while back. So we're just going to watch the Kalam Cosmological argument. And AP, jump in. Our mics will be live, so jump in anytime. But we can also pause it after individual points. But here we go.
Number one, the cosmological argument. The question of why anything at all exists is the most profound question of philosophy. The philosopher Derek Parfit says, no question is more sublime than why there is a universe, why there is anything, rather than nothing. Typically, atheists have answered this question by saying that the universe is just eternal and uncaused. But there are good reasons, both philosophically and scientifically, to think that the universe began to exist.
Do you believe that the universe is eternal, AP?
Sorry, I'm still getting the lag. What do you say?
Do you believe that you can plead the fifth? But he was pointing out that I mean historically. So I guess pre Big Bang, lots of people thought that the universe is eternal. And then he says,
I have to say something, David. I think when you turned on the video, the whole thing got significantly worse on my part. Me hearing what you say. So while that is on the screen, but I think it's still manageable. But I don't know.
Let me ask, because if so, then I probably won't talk to you. But let me also find out, guys. So let us know. Is the audio normal for everyone else, or is there a problem with? Because keep in mind, this is a new setup here, and they totally revamped Ecamm. So let us know if the audio is fine. Otherwise, I will. Okay, so they said they hear us. They hear us both fine.
Okay, I'll manage.
All right.
What was the question? What was it that whether I think that the universe is?
Yeah. Did you hear Craig? Okay, or is it just me? There's a problem.
I heard him. I just had a problem with you. Yeah.
Okay, so
I hear you fine now. I don't know. Maybe it was just a coincidence.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We got some problem. So yeah, I was just asking what your perspective is, because Craig mentioned that, historically there are people who thought the universe is eternal, but he just said he's about to go into a couple of the reasons, but now he's saying that now there are good reasons to think that the universe had a beginning.
Yeah, of course, a very significant question that different philosophers have talked about and different perspectives exist today. I mean, I think the main idea is that humans don't definitely know what the actual explanation is, whether the universe had a beginning or not, whether it always existed or not. But we have certain theories, of which the Big Bang theory is the most credible one, because it has the biggest amount of evidence, which points at the idea that the universe came into existence at some point, or at least began to expand at some point, but we don't know what exactly caused it, what exactly came before it. There are different hypotheses around that as well. I don't know. The way I view it, it's like it's something where I can go with the best explanation at the moment, while also keeping all kinds of possibilities open. And to me, when I think about it, I consider it as a as a possibility that the universe existed, always existed, was always there, or that that maybe something beyond what we describe as the universe always existed, and that the universe, as we describe it, is a part of all that. And then you can go into all kinds of different ideas of a multiverse and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility. We don't have
Yeah,
any
yeah,
answers to it.
I actually agree with the arguments that our universe had a beginning. So the question is there something? Yeah, what's before that? Yeah. So, but
That's
again,
the whole problem here.
yeah, I'm sympathetic to Hume's response that you're getting very far away from your experience when you're talking about things like that. But Hindu historian here says, I agree with him that the universe had a beginning, but not that therefore Christianity is true. Well, I don't. Craig isn't arguing that either, Hindu historian. So,
But
but
here's the thing: we will definitely go into details of this. But the Big Bang theory is less than 100 years old. The discovery of different galaxies is less than 100 years old. All kinds of the cosmological model as we have it today, as it still develops, all of this happened like within the last 100 years on an advanced scale. Um, it is still there are still different explanations that are not entirely discredited that may be possible, like for example the whole cyclic models, or the big bounce, that the universe is something that repeatedly breaks and pops and comes into existence again, goes to a certain point, breaks and pops into existence again, and so on. That there is an infinite process that is going on, that there is no beginning to it, but which would explain the Big Bang as simply part of that process, because it would explain that the universe began from a certain point, but that it is not part of the ultimate beginning of everything. It is just part of the beginning of this certain process that we are in, until the universe collapses and then another Big Bang happens. I mean, it might not sound reasonable to everyone, might not make sense to everyone, and there's a lot of discussion around it, a lot of arguments against it scientifically, but it is a possibility. It is one of the ideas, one of the arguments that are still around.
yeah, guys, for anyone who doesn't know why this stuff is pretty recent, as AP pointed out, it's pretty recent to be talking about the Big Bang and so on. And that's because um, lots of people back in the day, including people like Einstein, thought the universe is like just static. It's just the way it is. It's just stay there, and for all we know, maybe forever. But then it was people are looking. So you got people like Hubble and stuff looking at stars and so on, and um, noticing that the light patterns aren't matching up with other patterns, and so the question is, what are they? Are these made of some other substance or something like that, because it's not matching up? And then it gets suggested, well, maybe it's massively red shifted, meaning when things are moving away from you very fast, like the Doppler effect, right? So if a siren, police car is going by you, the sound of the siren changes as it's going by you, because at first it's moving towards you and then it's moving away from you. And so the question became, well, maybe these are actually normal light, but it's so massively red shifted that it looks different now. And so that's what it turned out to be. And so then they figure out, oh, actually the universe is expanding really, really, really rapidly. And so if the universe is expanding, then you can say, well, what happened in the past? Well, it looks like everything was, started off at a point in the past. Anyway, that's my take on it as a non-scientist. But anyway, that's pretty
Very much.
recent, and so all of that stuff is recent, and then you have Big Bang, and then trying to make sense of it scientifically and so on. But then they're getting into like singularities and how do you get a universe, and does the universe come out of nothing, and so on, and then people basing arguments on the most recent scientific theories and so on. And so what AP's pointing out, and what I would agree with is, the theories change sometimes. Like, a a new dominant theory might come along in 10 years, or a theory that's been somewhat discredited might make a comeback, and so on. So it's just basically, just be careful how you're proceeding based on the latest, scientific theories. But anyway, let's get back to Craig here, and let's see if the audio problem continues for AP.
Philosophically, the idea of an infinite past seems absurd. Just think about it. If the universe never began to exist, that means that the number of past events in the history of the universe is infinite. But mathematicians recognize that the existence of an actually infinite number of things leads to self-contradictions. For example, what is infinity minus infinity? Well, mathematically, you get self-contradictory answers. This shows that infinity is just an idea in your mind, not something that exists in reality. David Hilbert, perhaps the greatest mathematician of the 20th century, wrote, "The infinite is nowhere to be found in reality. It neither exists in nature nor provides a legitimate basis for rational thought. The role that remains for the infinite to play is solely that of an idea."
So that is that's one of the main steps of the Kalam cosmological argument. Because if you based a cosmological argument just on the Big Bang, that wouldn't be the Kalam cosmological argument. The Kalam cosmological argument historically is focused on the idea, because notice that this argument existed before you had evidence from the Big Bang. So
Yeah.
arguing for the beginning of the universe based on the Big Bang is different from the Kalam argument, which argued for the same thing, but not based on science. It was a philosophical and mathematical argument based on the idea that if you say the universe has existed for all eternity, then you're saying that we have, in order to get to the present, we have traversed an actual infinite, right? Like we have traversed an infinite amount of time, an infinite amount of hours, an infinite amount of days, an infinite amount of years, and so on. To get to the present, we have traversed an infinite. And lots of people historically have had a problem with the idea that you can traverse an infinite. So that's part of the Kalam cosmological argument. And then Craig combines that with the idea that you have, you end up with mathematical absurdities if you think that an infinite number of anything, an infinite collection of days, weeks, anything is possible, because you end up with things like, so notice if you've traversed, and if the universe has existed for all eternity, then how many 24-hour periods have gone by? Well, infinite. How many years have gone by? Infinite. And you end up with some weird mathematical issues if you start adding and subtracting and so on in infinites and so on. And so that's the general idea. What's your take on that part of it, the Kalam part?
The whole infinite regress idea, of course, comes up all the time as part of different cosmological arguments, not just the Kalam cosmological argument.
That's true.
But also the argument as we have it today has been developed by William Lane Craig and others from, as you pointed out, from a cosmological argument that has been in existence for a much longer time, for 2,000 years or maybe more. And back in, he references Imam Ghazali very often, who apparently also adopted the cosmological argument upon which William Lane Craig expanded his argument. Ghazali didn't know about the universe. He didn't know about the beginning of the universe. He didn't know about the Big Bang. He didn't know about stars, planetary systems, galaxies, and all that. All he did know or think was that everything begins to exist. The world obviously began to exist because everything begins to exist. He didn't have any proof for any of that at all. He didn't even come close to the evidence of a Big Bang. His idea was only everything begins to exist, and the universe also obviously began to exist. And if it began to exist, it was brought into existence by something, because everything must have a cause. Of course, William Lane Craig today, with the help of the Big Bang Theory and other explanations, expands on that and says we know that the universe came into existence or started at some point, and everything that comes into existence has a cause. Therefore, the universe also has a cause, and then that somehow leads to God, which we will see further in this whole discussion here, in this argument as he makes it. I have a problem with the part where there are many problems, but one problem is the reference to numbers and mathematics and the impossibility of an infinite regress. As far as I am aware, it is not absolutely considered impossible that there is an infinite past or infinite regress, or that the universe could have been into existence forever. If that was a contradiction in logic, it would have been just refuted and thrown out the window. As he puts it, as far as I understand it, it is simply for us at this point inconceivable to think of an infinite regress, or to think of infinity without a cause in such a way that the universe always existed and that there has been an infinite number of days. But I think the problem here is I'm not an expert in any of these fields, but as far as I see it and understand it, the problem here is that just because it is at this point in time for us hard to understand or inconceivable, that doesn't necessarily mean that this therefore means it must be untrue, and that this is somehow conclusive evidence that there is no infinite past, or that the universe cannot be infinite. I just think it is, to an average layman like me, or maybe to others as far as I have seen it, not sufficient as evidence, right? And coming to the beginning, I think we'll go further into that anyway as he expands it. But yeah, let's just go ahead and we can respond to the whole idea of the universe having a beginning when it comes to it.
This was an interesting comment here. He says, basically, are the philosophical arguments better than the scientific evidence? So the question is, you have the scientific evidence for a Big Bang and theories related to that, but then you have philosophical arguments based on the idea of actually, you could break it down into three, because arguing that it's impossible to traverse an actual infinite, that's not really a mathematical argument. That's a philosophical argument. Pointing out mathematical absurdities, mathematical problems when you're dealing with surreal numbers, that's like infinity plus infinity or infinity plus 2 and so on. That's a mathematical issue. And then you have the scientific. So yeah, like, here's the thing. I agree with the points, but I'm sort of on a similar page with AP, and I don't think it's like airtight, right? Like, so in other words, yeah, it looks like the universe had a beginning. If it's expanding and you trace it back, it looks like it started that way. It does sound really, really, really weird to think of traversing an actual infinite. Like, in order to get here, we've crossed an infinite. Like if someone arrived and said, he said, "Hey, how long you been going?" "Oh man, I'm immortal, but I traveled an infinite number of miles." It's like, what the heck are you even talking about? It doesn't sound like it's even possible. And then the mathematical absurdities would be where, I have the least grasp of it, so I'm not exactly sure what to say. But it is interesting that they're all kind of pointing in the same direction, as far as there seems to be a problem with the universe existing forever. But here's the thing. You don't have to say, I'm 100% confident of this. You can have evidence that points you in a certain direction, and hold to that tentatively. There was a I don't actually philosophical argument. So the question whether the philosophical argument is better than the scientific evidence, I think that's going to depend on the person, right? I think that's going to depend on person. Do you have more respect for philosophical arguments, or are you more impressed by what people are seeing with telescopes and then, formulating scientifically?
That's one of the problems with philosophy in this field. it sounds a little bit insulting when I say it, but I really don't mean it that way. But it's like, I mean, philosophy is interesting and intriguing and really feels pleasurable to the mind and all. But much of philosophy also consists of explaining certain ideas based on what we know so far, without giving us any documentation, but by referencing documentation that we have. So it's basically just okay, here's everything that we have. Now, what are we going to do with this? Well, this seems plausible, that seems plausible, that seems implausible, and so on. It is a lot of mind training, much of which doesn't necessarily lead us to anything conclusive. It's just we're just playing with ideas.
There was a super chat here saying David Wood and Jay Dyer's son. Are they saying you're Jay Dyer's son? I don't know.
No.
You're not Jay Dyer's son, right? Unless there's something I didn't know. Oh, also,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what that meant. Maybe you look like him or something. I don't know. And Jovin Joy had a super chat earlier.
I find him very funny, though. I think Dyer is very funny.
Yeah. I think he's actually a comedian who just discusses these things. Jovin Joy earlier had a super chat that said, David Wood, I think you lost a bit of weight. Is everything all right? Yeah, I get these messages. David, are you sick or something? No, it's really all the guys on my dad's side of the family die around 50 years old from heart attacks. And I'm 46, almost 47. So a couple years ago, my doctor basically said, you have hypercholesterolemia and you're going to die from the same thing if you do not get in better shape. So this is deliberate. This is not me being sick and dying. Although I have been, my goodness, I've had COVID twice, and one time it lasted a month and another time it lasted like 2 months. It was fairly mild symptoms, but it just never went away. Anyway, so that's the update on my health for everyone. All right, let's get back to
That's good.
Billy Craig here.
But that entails that since past events are not just ideas, but are real, the number of past events must be finite. Therefore, the series of past events can't go back forever. Rather, the universe must have begun to exist.
Okay, can you pause for a second?
This conclusion has been confirmed by remarkable discovery.
What's that?
So, I know we pause very frequently. I just want to add very quickly to this whole idea. As far as I see it, I cannot be, I don't see, a documentation or a proof that it is therefore absurd or impossible for an infinite number of events in the past to exist. Like, I think about this very often. I think about, as he pointed out, one of the most difficult or most profound questions is, why does anything exist at all? And I think about the Earth or the world or a flat land as a hypothetical place that has been in existence forever, instead of just the universe with all the space that it has. It is very hard for me and for anyone to think that that land or this world has been in existence forever, for eternity, that there was no beginning to it at all. It has always been in existence. It never began to exist. And that everything that is on there just pops into existence. This is, or just grew out of it or came into existence somehow, but that the land was there forever. It is very hard to think about, very hard to comprehend. It hurts. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's impossible, right? I mean,
yeah, and really, it's it was common, several years ago to claim that this or that is impossible and so on. But I think in recent years, Craig has stated it in such a way that as to say, like, it's massively improbable or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, and by the way, guys, keep in mind, most of the stuff you believe, you're dealing with probabilities rather than absolute certainties about certain things. There's very little where you could just say there's no possible way to be wrong here. That would be like certain like mathematical things. And Descartes would even disagree with that. He would say, hey, every time you add 2 plus 2, it's possible. He's not arguing that this is true. He's just saying there is room for skepticism if you wanted to. It's possible that every time you add 2 plus 2, a powerful demon deceives you into thinking that you know the answer when you're actually getting it wrong. So again, he doesn't believe that. He thinks that's totally wrong. He repudiates that. But the point there is, there's very little that that goes through our minds that you can't doubt in some sense. And so a lot of what we believe we have to base on probabilistic evidence and so on. And so anyway, so we have the idea of traversing and infinite. We have the mathematical absurdities and the scientific evidence for the origin of the universe. And so the question is, where's Craig going to go from there? Let's see. Let me rewind it a couple seconds because I think he's mid sentence here.
Okay, pause. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go back forever. Rather, the universe must have begun to exist. This conclusion has been confirmed by remarkable discoveries in astronomy and astrophysics. In one of the most startling developments of modern science, we now have pretty strong evidence that the universe is not eternal in the past, but had an absolute beginning about 13 billion years ago in a cataclysmic event known as the Big Bang. What makes the Big Bang so startling is that it represents the origin of the universe from literally nothing.
And that's the tough part for a lot of people. But I've read through I think he's going to quote PCW Davies and so on. But man, you want to try getting your mind around something, you will actually see physicists and cosmologists saying that it came from nothing, and they don't mean some pre-existent small thing or something like that. They're saying just nothing, which, man, that's weird.
Here's the thing: when you refer to the science of the most popular ideas behind what there was before the Big Bang, even when it is when said there was nothing before it, what is really meant is often not nothing. What is meant is just that that whatever there was, it cannot be described as something because it is, you know. It may be the initial singularity where space and time do not matter at all, which is why it is basically nothing. Only when it expands, something comes into existence, or even prior to that, fluctuations, energy, were at such a low, insignificant level that it is almost nothing, but it's not really nothing. It's not nothing as in there was absolutely nothing in existence. It is rather that there is an origin in existence that refers to almost nothing at all. And it's a difficult idea to even to wrap your head around. But I mean, that is even the point is even that is a discussion. There is no unanimous agreement, even among those who argue that there was nothing, that there was absolutely nothing before.
Yeah, but that's the weird part. They'll say so. The claim is that energy, matter, and time itself all had their beginning at the Big Bang, and so there's the claim is just there's none of that beforehand, and so there's nothing. But I would agree with that comment earlier. Like now you're getting really far from our own from experience and stuff.
Yeah,
so how do you even discuss that sort of thing? Like
it is.
It doesn't seem like our minds are well equipped to be talking about stuff before the Big Bang or something like that, or what it's like for something to be like before time even came into, because time, before is a temporal word, so it's weird to even talk about the word something before time. Anyway, weird stuff going on.
Here's the issue. Like there's something I think about quite often that makes me really sad when I think about it. It's very depressing. The question: will it ever be possible, or when will it be possible to engage in intergalactic travel? To leave our galaxy and to travel to a different galaxy. And the most common answer right now is, as far as we see it, as far as we can foresee the development of our technology, it may never be possible for humans to leave our galaxy, let alone to travel to a different galaxy. And we would have to leave the galaxy in order to look back and see what our galaxy actually looks like. Because just traveling to the edge of our galaxy would take, I don't know, at this point, how much was it? Like billions of years? going to the closest galaxy would be, I think, with the current technology of how much time we need to travel one light year, it would take 90 billion years or something like that. And if the technology could advance significantly beyond this, maybe it would be considered possible in some, in millennia, maybe in centuries, if we somehow managed to travel in the speed of light. But even then, it would take a long time. But at the current stage, it is considered impossible to even conceive, even think of a way of traveling between galaxies. When we are at this stage, and you are basically trapped in this part of the universe, of this giant thing, it is very hard for me to rely on the human mind, which only found different galaxies 100 years ago, and to say, well, okay, we clearly know how it began, we clearly know where it began and when it began, and we have certain knowledge on this, and we can therefore conclude that it must have started from some point, and that there was definitely nothing before that, and that nothing must have been that something must have been brought into existence out of nothing by some other agent, and so on. These are just very tough questions that I think, no matter how far you are in the philosophy, in the science, you simply do not have conclusive, certain answers to, which you can spread to the world and make people accept. These are existential, hard questions, which is why I always resort to just adopting this absurdist point of view and saying, there is no way for me to ever, in my lifetime, come to a certain conclusion. So the best thing I can do is just to not be existentially worried about it. I can still, of course, explore it, but I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as, getting some sort of like certainty out of something like that, then I would agree. I think what you can really do is sort of say, well, that makes sense, and then build some. You could build. As far as I'm concerned, you could build something on, hey, that really makes sense, or things point in that direction. So I think I think you can. Okay, it really looks like the universe had a beginning, but then where do you go from there? Because then you can say there's lots of evidence that the universe had a beginning, but then once you start going into came from nothing, or trying to figure out what caused that or something like that, you're quickly getting further and further from into areas where you might not want to trust your. Now keep in mind, I agree with the argument. But it's not in the sense of this is absolutely certain, or really even any part of it is absolutely certain. It's more along the lines of, yeah, it looks like there's a beginning, and it looks like this, and it looks like that, and so on. But yeah, let's see. So he's talking about science, the scientific evidence right now, right?
For all matter and energy, even physical space and time themselves, came into being at the Big Bang. As the physicist P.C.W. Davies explains, the coming into being of the universe, as discussed in modern science, is not just a matter of imposing some sort of organization upon a previous incoherent state, but literally the coming into being of all physical things from nothing. Now, this puts the atheist in a very awkward position. As Anthony Kenny of Oxford University urges, a proponent of the Big Bang Theory, at least if he is an atheist, must believe that the universe came from nothing and by nothing. But
dumb atheists. Did you hear that, everyone? So the universe came from nothing, and so AP has to believe that it came from nothing by nothing, whereas, see, a theist can say it came from nothing, but not by nothing. It came by God.
Yeah. Here's the issue. It's actually very good to point out the distinction between from nothing and by nothing. First off, as far as I'm aware, I disagree that if you agree with the Big Bang, you must agree that everything came into existence out of nothing and that there was nothing prior to it. I don't think that there is actually that there is like a unanimous answer or an agreement on that. There are still possibilities, still options open. And as said, this is a very relatively new idea, considering that we have thousands of years of history and we have 100 years of the Big Bang Theory. But here is the thing. I think there is one very interesting distinction to talk about, which is everything that came into existence has a cause. Nothing can come into existence out of nothing. The universe also came into existence. It must have come out of nothing, from nothing, which is absurd. Therefore, it was brought into existence by something. But here is the thing: if you want to compare this to real examples in our world that you explore, can you point at something in our time that we know to be real, which was brought into existence by an agent out of nothing? No, there is no such thing. There is nothing that you can point at in our universe which was brought into existence by somebody or by something out of nothing. Everything that exists in our universe that is created is merely a rearrangement of matter. People or things put something together to create something out of something else. Therefore, you can't really compare the universe to anything that we know. So you can't really make a logical comparison here and say everything that comes into existence comes into existence is created by something. Therefore, the universe which came into existence also was created by something, because you can't really compare that. The universe, according to this theory, according to this idea, came into existence out of nothing, not out of something created by somebody else. You know what I mean?
And notice that's a different point. And after we watch the video, we'll actually put up the syllogism of the Kalam cosmological argument. But the idea that whatever begins to exist must have a cause. I think the point you're making is the idea that the universe must have a cause if it came out of nothing is, I mean, that's like a philosophical claim, right? Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You're saying that's not based in any experience. We have experience of things coming into existence, but they're coming into existence from previously existing things.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about something coming into existence from nothing, we have no experience of that. And so it's difficult to make claims. So really, it's just sort of, okay, at least I can get my mind around an agent that is really powerful being able to make something, whereas I can't get my mind around just nothing giving rise to something. And but yeah, I agree that's, once you're talking about something coming out of nothing, then you're getting pretty far beyond our experience.
Yeah.
But I understand the point. One, I can get my mind around. The other, I was like, whoa, what in the world is going on there? But I think what you're saying is the entire idea of something coming out of nothing is something that's already so far beyond anything in our experience that probably
it's incomparable. You don't have any example to it. I mean, you cannot name a single example of something actually coming into existence out of nothing, or something being brought into existence out of nothing. So the universe is something beyond our comprehension, something that you can compare nothing real to, and nothing. You cannot document anything similar to it. And when you now go with a theological argument here and use this entire argument to come to the conclusion that that there is a God, because only God would have could have brought into existence the universe out of nothing, then you are actually shifting the point here. And instead of talking about how something comes into existence out of nothing, you're suddenly switching to how something comes into existence by somebody else, or by an entity, or by something. But that was not the whole point of things coming into existence. But again, this is a long discussion. I'm sure we will get to that in a little bit.
Rockstar said title should be David Wood versus Apostate Prophet. This is not we're not versus anything here. This is looking at an argument and sharing some sort of our overview thoughts on it, and we'll agree on lots of things and have some disagreements. But yeah, just it's not a debate here. All right, so we got about a minute left.
Surely that doesn't make sense. Out of nothing, nothing comes. So why does the universe exist instead of just nothing? Where did it come from? There must have been a cause which brought the universe into being. Now, as the cause of space and time.
All right, now here's so guys, there are a couple steps here. So this is why I think he just calls this a cosmological argument, and it's because he combines it with scientific, which is more than the Kalam cosmological argument. But the steps are to argue that the universe had a beginning, to claim that anything that begins to exist must have a cause, and then to discuss what that cause must be like what, if we were to describe something that could cause the universe, then what would it be like? So right now he's getting into that last point here. So let's check this out.
Into being. Now, as the cause of space and time, this being must be an uncaused, timeless, spaceless, immaterial being of unfathomable power. Moreover, it must be personal as well.
So, I mean, this is interesting, but this is, I mean, we'll go ahead and finish it, but this is going to, if you're talking about like causation of the entire universe, then you're really, really far from things we have in our ordinary experience. But I just want everyone to understand his point that if time and space, matter, all of that comes into existence with the universe, and if he's right that something else caused the universe, then it sounds like you're talking about before there's matter and even time and space, and therefore the cause you'll be talking about is immaterial. It's beyond time. And so the argument is basically you're starting to sound like God in whatever the cause here, and powerful enough to create the universe from nothing pre-existent. So you're dealing with something really, really powerful, and outside of time and immaterial. So, but let's go ahead and let him finish up here.
Because the cause must be beyond space and time. Therefore, it cannot be physical or material. Now, there are only two kinds of things that fit that description. Either an abstract object, like numbers, or else a personal mind. But abstract objects can't cause anything. Therefore, it follows that the cause of the universe is a transcendent, intelligent mind. Thus, the cosmological argument gives us a personal creator of the universe.
All right, so that last point there was, so again, if time and space and matter all come into existence with our universe, then whatever causes our universe must be, timeless, spaceless, and immaterial, but also powerful enough to create the universe. That's sounding like God. But then Craig also points out that it would have to be personal. In other words, something that's capable of making decisions. Because if you're talking about something that exists in some sense, but it's immaterial and timeless, they're abstract objects like that, like numbers, right? Like you might say they exist in some sense, but it's not like, it's not something in time. You can have a specific number of something, but like the number two is it's called an abstract object, meaning it's not something you find. It's like more like a concept in a mind. But abstract objects don't cause things. They don't make things happen. So he's saying, if you're talking about something timeless and immaterial, there are abstract objects like that, but they can't be the sort of thing that caused the universe. And therefore, if you want something that could cause the universe, it would have to be personal, meaning something that can decide to create the universe. And so the point is, he's saying, so you've got something that's immaterial, timeless, spaceless, powerful enough to create a universe from nothing, and personal. And the claim is that And I would agree that's starting to sound like God. And so, I mean, matter of fact, sounds a lot like God. And so the question is, how much do you trust the reasoning that leads to that conclusion? All right, what are your thoughts, AP?
I just have a very small problem here, which is the whole bridge that we make between it must have a cause, and the cause must be something that is immaterial beyond this space and time that must have created it, and all of that. It is. It relies a lot on the idea, on the modern idea, that space and time comes into existence not into an already pre-existing space, but rather um, it is, I mean, space itself only comes into existence with the expanding universe. It starts at some point. So there was no space, there was no time, there was nothing. Space only begins to exist and to expand from a certain point. Therefore, um, a God, if he creates the universe, must be in no space, or must be beyond space, beyond time. But this is again a big philosophical step to make, because if we do accept the idea that the universe which we have begins to expand from a certain point, and that this universe is what creates space and time, does it really mean that that outside of this there couldn't be some other space that is parallel to this, or independent from this, or beyond this, and that God, for example, exists within that space, within that time? We're going into a whole field, into a region that is very hard to explore in your mind, and very hard to make an actual case for. And I don't know, it's difficult to somehow deliver the idea that that cause must be outside of or independent from it all, which doesn't even fit perfectly with scriptural, with an old ancient scriptural understanding of God, where you have God being above or inside a certain place, and moving in a certain place before creating the world and everything that is within it.
You
But yeah,
you do have.
deep stuff.
I mean the traditional. I mean the traditional Christian doctrine is creation ex nihilo, so creation out of nothing. So, um, and that just means that God, God is the ultimate source of everything. So it's not like he's among other things and then using these other things to create. Although you do have some stuff in Genesis where it talks about like this. It sounds like there's this primordial chaos and so on.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. So for me, I mean, it's a weird situation because it's almost like, can I use my reasoning with this stuff? Like that's the question. And how much can I trust my reasoning with these kinds of issues? Because it really, really looks like the universe had a beginning. The arguments for why the universe had a beginning make a lot of sense. So it's like, how much do I trust the fact that it makes it makes sense to me that the universe had a beginning? Like it really does seem absurd to traverse an actual infinite, and it really does look like, okay, well, I mean, the universe is expanding, and so it looks like you could trace it back to an initial bang or something like that. So that makes sense. And then if the options are out of nothing by nothing, or out of nothing by a powerful creator, well, the creator makes more sense. And then if we were to say, okay, if this is before matter and energy and time and so on, what does this sound like? Well, it sounds okay. It sounds like it's some sort of cause that's immaterial and timeless and so on. Sounds like that. And then if you were to say, okay, personal or a personal cause or an abstract object. Okay, abstract object doesn't make any sense. So personal, powerful creator, that makes sense. And so I agree with every step that, yeah, that the claim you're making makes more sense than the alternative. In fact, usually makes much more sense. And so the real question is, once you start talking about a timeless cause of a universe coming into being, or what it even means to be, a timeless immaterial cause or something like that, or, the question, well, let me put it this way. If you're saying, hey, the only things that we're aware of that could fit the description of the cause would be an abstract object or a personal agent. Well, abstract object doesn't make any sense. That doesn't mean that there aren't other things that we can't think of. And so the argument here is basically, in our experience, the only thing that we're familiar with that could fill this role would be a personal, really powerful cause. And so the question then becomes, how skeptical are you, and how much do you think that there is out there that we don't know, that we might not be familiar with, especially when you're talking about like causing time and space itself. So notice, I mean,
Here's something funny to think about.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I thought.
No, go ahead. That was
Here's something.
Here's
something interesting, and here's something funny to think about. Something just to use your imagination. It's weird to think about, but imagine that that the universe that we have. Imagine there is a big blob, right? That is at a center from our perspective, and from this big blob, which has existed forever, other blobs, other worlds come into existence all the time and distance themselves from the blob. So it comes into existence, starts as basically nothing, a little singularity, and as it moves away from that blob, it begins to expand as it regains its own ability to expand into infinity and push itself away from all the other worlds that come into existence, also shot away from that blob, which explains why that specific world, that specific universe that came out of that blob, expands from a certain point, or moves away from a certain point, but that universe itself also expands infinitely, which is why everything within this universe also expands from a certain point, right? So that there is also a center of our universe from which everything began to expand. Why is this not possible? Why is it not possible that the space and time that we have in our universe is the result of this little blob that came out of the major blob shooting out and expanding, but there are also different universes. That there is a multiverse, an infinite multiverse, and at the center of it there is just an infinitely existing blob that has been there forever, for which when did it begin to exist is an implausible question. It doesn't make sense. It was always there. Why is this not possible?
So I mean, there are plenty of people who defend the multiverse, and then there are actually multiverse versions of the Kalam cosmological argument, arguing that those things that are subject to physical laws would face the same issue. I did notice because guys, we want to try to be consistent. We're not going to be perfectly consistent here, but I did notice an inconsistency once with it was Richard Dawkins debating John Lennox, and when Dawkins was arguing, was discussing the cosmological argument, he was saying that as you move back in time, you get to simpler and simpler and simpler and simpler and simpler things until you're down to a little singularity. And he goes, simple little singularity. And he says, and what do Christians want to do? They want to say, oh, what caused that? Well, this really powerful being. And he says, you don't want to go back and go to something way more complicated in order to explain something simple. And so that's how he responded to the cosmological argument. If you're going back in time and you're getting to something simpler, why then bring something massively more complicated into it? But then when he was explaining cosmological fine-tuning, so why the laws of the universe are actually equipped for supporting life, he says, well, there's a multiverse, so we could just be one of many, many universes and so on. It's like, wait a minute. So you're saying don't go back to something way more complicated, but then you're going to this infinite array of alternate universes in order to explain ours. And it's like, okay, pick your rule here, because if you're saying, hey, you can't go back to if you shouldn't go back to something way more complicated to explain what we see here, then you don't get to do that either. But
So,
yes,
see, it seems contradictory, but here's the thing. Like when I do this, for example, when I bring up a different hypothesis, that seems a little bit absurd, but that is why is it not possible, right? Then the whole purpose of that is to say, I'm not claiming that is the reality, or that this is the best explanation that we have. I'm merely saying, if you want to
you have to
come to
rule
me,
that out. You have to rule that
yeah,
out if you're
yeah,
saying God.
yeah. If you want to come to me and say that there is an almighty creator who is the origin of everything, then why would I not? Why would we have to rule that out? I mean, why not this? Why not all the other theories in existence? I'm not making any claims. I'm not saying this one is more likely than that one. But why not all the others instead of just that? That seems like a wrong application of the of Occam's razor, which is just so popular on both sides of this whole discussion, where we come to the universe coming into existence, instead of then concluding, okay, it came into existence out of something, and we that's all we know. We don't know enough to come to the most reasonable answer here. We jump to a certain conclusion. But why are we doing that? I don't do that. I say we don't know. There are many possibilities, and I can't build my life around a certain conclusion that I come to and then just rely on that. I have to leave it open because I simply do not know.
Matt Bell brings up an important point. He says, I don't think you can cause without time. In other words, causal language is although I disagree a bit, but I agree that it's really, really hard, because we'll put it this way. We do have a concept of causation that isn't the same as temporal. So in other words, notice I have a coaster here, and then I have a cup. Suppose, my cup is sitting on the coaster here. And suppose I say, what's the cause of this cup being here? Well, I can appeal to myself as a personal cause. I put it there. So there I'm speaking temporally. I put it there in the past, and so I was the cause of it being there. But notice there's another cause of this being here, namely something is holding it up. Namely, the coaster's holding it up, my arm's holding that up. And so that's not something that simply happened in the past. It did happen in the past, but like right now at this moment, it's being caused to be put there. So that's not temporal in the same way. It's like simultaneous. So anyway, that I'm not saying the universe is like that. I'm saying those are different concepts of causation. One is more temporal, and the other is it's like right now and simultaneous. And so I don't know. I think there can be causation that isn't the before and after. It's more like being upheld. But I agree that, like, how in the world can we get our minds around something like that? And I'm not sure you can. So, and that's the point of like a philosophical issue. It's similar to what Sherlock Holmes is famous for saying: once you eliminate the impossible, whatever is left must be true. And so if you concluded somehow that it's impossible, that it's uncaused or something like that, then you'd say, okay, well, what's left? Well, timeless causation. I don't understand what that's like, but if that's the only thing that's possible, then even if I don't get it, then it has to be like that. And so the question is, have you actually ruled out all other possibilities? We can go ahead.
And the way I go there is just to say, I just say, the way I think about it is, my best answer to the biggest question that we have is, I don't know. We will find out. I will certainly not find out in my lifetime. That's the problem. I can spend my whole lifetime thinking and talking about these things. I will most certainly not come to a conclusive answer and I know
you might get
for certain.
You might get way smarter.
Yeah. So all I can do is I can play with these thoughts and listen to different ideas and explore them and all of that. But it is better for me, in my opinion. It is more ideal to say, I don't know, than to say, okay, I'll go with this idea and I believe that, because that makes me uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable to stick with an idea that I do not know to be true. I would rather just admit that I don't know and then, go ahead with that.
And that is, I mentioned Hume earlier. Hume, when he's talking about the design argument, in Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion, he points out once you start going into talking about eternity past and so on, you're so far from what we experience, that Hume is saying, hey, I don't trust my faculties. Other people do. Lots of scientists do. When they talk about the origin of the universe, they're convinced that they know what they're talking about. And guess what? They know a lot more about the science than we do. But notice that's kind of an aspect of your personality. Like, how much do you trust your cognitive faculties, so your reasoning processes and so on, when dealing with matters that are really far away from your experience? Because lots of philosophers do trust themselves with that. Lots of scientists do. But another point that Hume makes that's along the lines of what AP was just saying in the dialogues, almost everyone, as far as I'm concerned, misunderstands Hume's Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion. People think because he attacks the design argument in that book and because he defends the argument from evil in that book, they think he's making a case against the design argument and a case for the argument from evil. And that is most certainly not what he's doing there. The vast majority of his target audience are theists, and so he directs it in that direction. But you find out at the end what he's actually arguing. And what he's actually arguing is this, that theists, when they talk about the design argument, they lay out the evidence for design, and they say, here, go where the evidence points. Go where the evidence points. But then when you bring up all the human and animal suffering in the world, then suddenly they become like skeptical of the implications of that evidence, right? They say, that maybe that's because of this. Maybe God has this reason. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. But you don't do that. Why don't you do that with the evidence for design? Maybe this, maybe. So that's actually what he does in the dialogues. He has his critic of the design argument going, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. You don't know. And then when he's talking about but the theist is going, no, go where the evidence points. Stop doubting, stop being skeptical, stop being such a skeptic. Go where the evidence points. And then they talk about the argument from evil, and he shows that it actually reverses. It's, well, maybe God's doing this, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And they say, wait, why aren't you just going where the evidence points? And so the conclusion that Hume reaches, which is actually much more sophisticated than how lots of atheists like read the book and they cheer it on and think he's rooting for them. And theists look at it and think that's what he's doing as well, and then attack it, not realizing he's criticizing both. And his actual takeaway in that book is this. He's saying that theists are inconsistent skeptics. They're skeptical of the evidence from evil, but not skeptical of the argument from of the evidence for design. And atheists would be the reverse. They're taking the evidence from evil and saying, yeah, come on, you can't believe in God with all this horrible stuff. But then they're being skeptical of all this evidence from design. And so Hume's actual conclusion is there are two ways to be consistent here. One, you can be consistent in accepting all of the evidence. But he said, if you're going to be consistent, then take the evidence from design and take the evidence from all the human and animal suffering in the world. And the takeaway, and he calls this the true conclusion. It means the true conclusion if you're going where the evidence points. He says the true conclusion would be an indifferent deity, a deity who designs everything, but who does not care about you. He is not concerned with what goes on here. And he says, if you want to draw a conclusion based on the evidence, that's the conclusion. But he says, the other way to be consistent is to just say, I don't know what the heck I'm talking about here. I don't know. Yeah. And so he say, yes, it looks like the universe is designed. There's all kinds of stuff in the universe that looks like it was designed by an intelligent source. And there's all sorts of stuff in the universe there's all sorts of evil that looks like it has absolutely no point, not part of some great plan or something. That just look like there's no point. And so you have two ways to be consistent. Either say, I'm going to accept all the evidence and believe in an indifferent deity, or you say, I'm just going to be skeptical of thinking that I can come to an adequate conclusion about any of this. And so I'm just going to say, I don't know. Looks like it, but I really don't know, and so I don't trust myself with this kind of stuff. And so anyway, I'm not defending that I'm not defending that position. I'm saying,
David Wood
um,
destroys religion. Yeah.
yeah, David Wood. It is funny because I'll get comments like that. Like if I criticize an argument, I say, "Hey, here's a weakness in this argument." People go, "Ah, David's attacking the argument. Ha ha! He has admitted that the argument is stupid." It's like that's not what I'm doing, guys. This is what you do in philosophy. Philosophers sit around all day criticizing arguments with the goal of ultimately seeing what the strongest arguments are. And by the way, everything we've said that's critical of the Kalam, or any weaknesses we're pointing out, I'm sure all of that's been pointed out to defenders of the argument, and that they've offered responses, and that their responses have been criticized by other people. And so mainly this is like an introduction for people, if this is new to you and so on. Get the main idea is to understand the argument, decide whether it's something you want to look into more, and if so, there's plenty of stuff out there. But let me just get the two quick summaries, and then we'll wrap it up, and then I will probably go watch the Super Bowl. AP is from Germany and Turkey, so you don't even know what that is.
No, I don't care. I heard that Rihanna is performing there, so that's all I know.
That's all. That's amazing. All he knows about the Super Bowl is Rihanna. So this is from Craig's animated video. And by the way, I should put the link to the animated videos on here if you want to get. They're really well done. The animated videos for helping people to understand the argument. But the premises of the argument, I'll give you two different ways to put the argument. So this is from the animated video, the cosmological argument. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. So if something begins to exist, it must be caused to exist. And the second premise is the universe began to exist. And Craig argues for that scientifically and philosophically, mathematically. And the conclusion does follow. The conclusion follows. If those first two premises are true, the conclusion that the universe has a cause does follow. But notice that you still have a lot more to argue. You have to argue that the cause of the universe fits the description of God. And so, yeah, that's kind of, it's a question of how reasonable you think those premises are. I think those premises are reasonable. It looks to me like that's where the evidence points, but I would agree with some others that there's room for questioning whether our faculties are reliable in these areas. And let me just put up one more on a different way to formulate the argument. So you can see here the possibilities. So you start with the universe. The universe exists. And notice from there you have two possibilities. Two possibilities, no beginning or a beginning. So either the universe goes back to, for all eternity and has no beginning, or it has a beginning. And so what you can do is you can scratch out the no beginning part, because the argument goes, we know scientifically, or at least we have very good reasons, scientifically, philosophically, mathematically, to reject the claim that the universe has no beginning. And so what would you conclude? You conclude, well, therefore it has a beginning. Okay, so the universe has a beginning. Now you have two further possibilities. Well, if the universe had a beginning, then it's either uncaused or it's caused. And so the claim there would be, it's absurd to think of a universe coming into existence and not being caused to exist by something else. And so you'd say that doesn't work, and therefore the universe is caused. And once you've concluded that the universe is caused, the question then becomes, is the cause of the universe personal or impersonal? If it's impersonal, what could it possibly be? And I think that's where you'd fit in what AP is saying about, like possibility of a multiverse or something like that. So that would be like an impersonal cause. If there's something before our universe that causes our universe. And so the question is, can you then apply Kalam argument reasoning to the multiverse itself? But if you conclude that the cause of the universe can't be impersonal, and Craig makes arguments for that this is, time and space and everything have a beginning there, and therefore all you're left with is abstract objects or some personal timeless, spaceless agent, and you conclude that it's personal. So if you in logic, this would be a series of disjunctive syllogisms. A disjunctive syllogism is A or B, not A, therefore B. So it's either this or this. It's not one, therefore it has to be the other. So if you wanted to state this in, as a series of syllogisms, you would say either the universe had no beginning or it had a beginning. It's not the case that it had no beginning, therefore it had a beginning. And then from there you'd say either the beginning of the universe is uncaused or it's caused. Well, it's not uncaused, therefore it's caused, and so on. And so that would be the reasoning there. All right, so that is an introduction to the Kalam cosmological argument and our initial thoughts on it. And we could, in theory, eventually have someone, whether on either side of the argument, or maybe both, to come in and answer some of our thoughts on this.
Yeah.
All right, anything else before we go ahead and close out, AP?
By the way, these shows are basically lectures, and they cost $50 per viewer. So, just kidding. No, that pretty much covers it. And yeah, we can talk endlessly about the syllogism of the Kalam cosmological argument as you have just summarized it. But again, that would be a very long discussion. We can definitely do that some other time.
Atheist Discussions had a super chat, said, "Wood and AP join Clubhouse, let's debate." I don't know what Clubhouse is.
It's an app where you have a bunch of people in a room, audio discussing. I've never done it. I've witnessed it before. I'm not sure if I have time for that, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, if I were to do, I have enough debate invitations to do on YouTube. And then Green Eagles had a super chat, said, "What stops nothing making everything happen again?" I don't know if you're joking or not. But yeah, that is something weird. The idea of nothing making stuff happen. Yeah. So anyway, our plan is to continue having discussions like this, and notice two things. Whether you agree with Craig or disagree with Craig, he's not saying something ridiculously stupid and false, right? Every claim he's making, he's offering philosophical or scientific reasons for. He's not thumping his chest. "Oh, screw you, boy! Ha ha! You've been refuted. You've been refuted." He's laying out the argument and laying out the evidence and letting you see what his views are, and then the question is why you should agree with him. So there's that. And also notice we're not freaking out and throwing a tantrum here. Christian and atheist examining an argument for theism, and we're not flipping out. See how easy that is, ladies and gentlemen?
Except after the show is over, we will be like, "So what was it you said about atheists?
Yeah,
what
you
was
little
that?"
punk. Yeah. You don't have the audience here to protect you now, sucker.
Yeah.
Destroy
No, definitely. It's like William Lane Craig has said at the very beginning, respectable. I respect his perspective and his arguments very much. And it's not like I reject his ideas because I think he's so dumb and his arguments are so dumb. No, it's totally respectable. I would, if I met him, sit in front of him and ask him questions and treat it more like a student who has a different opinion asking a teacher questions and asking for his opinion and trying to challenge them. It's not like it's not like he's beneath me or anything. On the contrary, everything that I will bring up, he has probably heard already, he has probably dealt with already, and he will deal with it again when I bring it up. But that's what this is. We have disagreements, we have different levels of experience and education and status, and this is a perfect way of engaging with each other's ideas, where we can sit down and talk about each other's ideas, question them, instead of fighting and chest thumping and saying, "Come in person, debate me. Where's your location?" and so on.
Yeah. So guys, stop being programmed to hate everyone who disagrees with you and to freak out at the very idea that anyone disagrees with you. What? Oh, someone thinks differently from me and isn't completely identical to everything I think. I have to destroy him. Grow up. If you have a point to make to other people, then make your point and see where that goes. And we have says this argument is nowhere near as ridiculous as any with a Dawa. I don't know if you mean Ali Dawa specifically or the Da'is in general, but yeah, I think this argument is significantly better than Ali Dawa's. The Romans. Historians agreed that the Romans couldn't even exist, but they did, as the Quran said.
I died inside. I thought, I was serious. I was dead. Like I went to the kitchen after this conversation, and I laid myself on the ground, and I didn't know what else to do. I had completely given up. And my wife came in there and was like, "Wow, is it really that bad?" I was like, "You don't even know."
Yeah, guys. I mean, I have to say, behind the scenes, like we finished that and we finished up, and we were both like, borderline in shock that we had just witnessed that argument being cheered on by so many people. But guys, that goes back, and I'll close with this, but that goes back to what I'm saying about this idea when, hey, I'm gonna join this group, I'm gonna join this tribe, and I can't question anything in my tribe, and I can't agree with anyone outside the tribe on any issue. I have to be part of this group. Because notice, once you have that kind of allegiance to a group that has a cult-like mentality, you can't question anything. They'll start saying, you're not really from this group. You're from that other group. And notice you have that built into Islam. Do not be friends. Do not take the Jews or Christians for friends. They are friends of each other. He who takes one of them as a friend is one of them. Notice if you become friends with a Jew or a Christian, you're actually one of them. Guy actually argued that in the debate. He said that because I was my partner was Nuria in the debate, that I'm actually an atheist. But think about the reasoning. Then she must actually be a Christian because she's partnered with a Christian. It's like insane. But notice, you have to be insulated. You can't, once you join a group like that with that cult-like thinking, you can't have any real serious interaction with anyone else that's not hostile, because your own group will attack you. How dare you? You're siding with them. And you need to get out of that. The result of that is exactly what we saw yesterday on AP's channel from Ali Dawa. You can spout any sort of idiotic nonsense you want, and you can't question it, because as soon as you question it, what happens? Are you an atheist, or are you siding with the enemies of Allah? Right? And guys, don't be like that.
It's terrible, man. It's terrible. I learned that mentality. I grew up with it. My parents taught me the same thing, directly from the Quran. That befriending the Christians and Jews is like being one of them, and I should basically fear for my afterlife and everything. It's a horrible way of programming people. It's like the extreme version of what Nietzsche said, as I brought it up at the very beginning. He probably couldn't have even imagined that.
Yeah, wild stuff. All right, everyone. Well, our plan is to be back next weekend again, first on AP's channel on Saturday, and then again on my channel on Sunday. And if you have requests, I mean, we have plenty of topics we can discuss and so on. But if you have any requests on Islamic videos or atheist arguments or theist arguments, let us know, and we'll try to cover them. All right. Catch y'all next time.
We'll do that. See you.